Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where I said that this was going to be the Artemis 4 mission, but technically we're not ready for that. I did a little bit of research into what the current plan is, and Lunar Gateway is apparently still part of that plan. I thought that I had heard that it was being canceled, but nope, I've looked it up, and currently it is not. So what we need to do is we need to construct the Lunar Gateway real quick here. So specifically, what we need is something along the lines of this. This is the Habitation and Logistics Outpost. So specifically, this is two modules, but they're launched together. So this is the Power and Propulsion module. And this is the, what's this called? This is the Habitation and Logistics Outpost, or HALO. So that is absolutely fine. We can construct this. These look suspiciously like Gigantors. And this is where the Orion is going to dock up. And presumably, this is where... Hang on. Is that where the Orion is going to dock up? This is a diagram of what was proposed previously. I believe this is old at this point. So at this point, Starship is probably going to dock up over here on the Habitation and Logistics Outpost. This is the International Habitation Module, which we're probably not going to include here. What we need to remember is things have changed along the lines of this. So we're going to be launching this here first. This is going to be a mini space station, right? And most of this launches on SLS. So that's fine. We've got one launch on Falcon Heavy, and Falcon Heavy is going to be slightly awkward for us. I want to be clear about that. Reason being, landing of two simultaneous boosters is going to be nearly impossible in KSP. Unless we do it with chutes. We could have one be done with chutes and the other one be done with propulsive landing, maybe? I don't know. It would be really, really, really awkward any way we slice it. So for now, this is the plan, right? We're going to construct specifically, where are we? Here we go. We're going to construct specifically this, and that is going to be absolutely fine. So this is the goal for the moment. So that, of course, means that we need a Falcon Heavy, right? We have a Falcon 9, and what is a Falcon Heavy? It's just basically 3 Falcon 9s strapped together with the fuel flow flowing center. So we're just going to grab ourselves a Falcon 9. And maybe the rule will be if we successfully recover one spacecraft, we'll just double the income, rounding it down. Something like that. So we're going to need to get the Falcon 9 here, and this is going to be a relatively cheap launch. Now, we have not launched it in a non-payload variation, right? In a non-Dragon variation. So that's something we're going to need to do. And we're also going to need to strap together multiple boosters here. So that is all fine. The landing legs, I'm probably going to omit here. Maybe not. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to put on some decouplers here. I want them to be relatively large standoffs. So we're going to put this on. Actually, we should duplicate this first, then put these on. Snapping, please. Thank you. Somewhere around here. Yeah, large standoffs is what we want. And I'm going to put these on this side due to the launch tower existing here, right? So that'll be fine. We're going to move these guys right on up, although I'd like them to be a little further up than this. That probably means that we're going to need to move where these radial decouplers end up going. So the radial decouplers are going to be about here. Okay. Something along the lines of that. That seems about right. Now we're going to need aerodynamic nose cones out over here. So is that this size? No, that is not that size. That is this size. Cool. That'll work just fine. We will need to strut these together. I'm not convinced that there's enough space here, though. So let's see about moving these out ever so slightly. I'm turning snapping off. Ooh, hang on. Undo that. We need it to go from here. Okay. About right there gives us a little bit more space between these. It's still not really enough with these landing legs. Now, we're almost certainly going to be landing these in water, so we could think about omitting the landing legs on the Falcon Heavy. We could also just change the angle of them. And I feel like that's a better option here. So let's, for the time being, remove these landing legs, and we will put them here. This needs to be in quad symmetry. It goes down to dual symmetry there? Okay, that's very awkward. Yeah, it goes down to dual symmetry like when we mouse over that. Okay, noted. For the time being, I'm going to remove those. And this one, I would want to put here. There we go. We could simply reduplicate this at this point. That is an option for sure. I want to move these one tick further over. Okay, yes, like that. Now, I'd like to duplicate this and put it in quad mode. Unfortunately for us, it really doesn't like to stay in quad mode. So I guess we'll have to do it in dual, and we'll do it here and here, and then here and here. Okay, so we just needed to change the orientation of those landing legs. Now, we're going to need to strut these together, so we want to strut them from the top, so from here to here, as well as at the bottom, so from about here to about here. Looks good. Now we're going to want to have fuel flow. So I'm going to put in a fuel line from here to here. And let's do a really quick launch here. We're going to leave the Dragon intact here, but it's going to be removed soon. In fact, you know what we could do? We could simply remove that and take all of this out of here, ditch this guy, put in a remote guidance module. So that would be, where are we? Pods. It would be, I believe, a large size. This would get reconnected here. We could now rotate this so that it would end up being like that, which seems absolutely fine. And then we put in a fairing, and our other components will go inside of this fairing. How big of a fairing does it need to be? Well, we can modify that based on the actual fairing, but it's going to be a 2.5 meter fairing, and we're just going to bring this guy up. And for the moment, I'm going to launch this empty with no payload. That does mean that we're going to have a lot of excess, thrust away, right? No doubt about that. So these are going to go here. Okay. So this is going to be 1.95 and then 1.41 once we get up there, but that's fine. I want to launch this mostly to check maneuverability and to check how sturdy we are in these connections at this point. So I'm going to save that, put it out on the pad. This is going to be a reverted flight. We're only going to fly a little ways here. Now, as far as the actual recovery of these side boosters go, we can recover the core booster, although that'll be more energetic. We can recover the side boosters, one of them, for sure. The other one, I don't know about, because they need to come down basically simultaneously, right? That's the core issue there. So let's lift this off, see how it goes. We'll just go into kill rod, and off we go. Cool. So the fuel should be flowing all from outside and not taking anything in this core at this moment. So we need to burn here, as before, until we have about 12-ish seconds remaining. And for now, we're just going to go up here. We should probably do a maneuverability test. So let's see how that goes. Okay, it is reasonably maneuverable. It feels very similar to the Starship Super Heavy in its maneuverability. So that's good to know. We're just continuing to punch our way through the atmosphere here. It doesn't like to move too much off of prograde, much like the Starship Super Heavy that way. So that's okay. Of course, we need to keep in mind there's no payload here whatsoever, and that is not necessarily going to be the most useful thing in the world. Okay, let's just park it about here or so, and continue to get some additional altitude. Our altitude is going to be a concern once we have a payload. I think that's very, very obvious. So 13, 12, 11, shutdown, separation, and reburning. And look at how low our altitude is. That is very concerning at this juncture, because I am not convinced that we recover either of these at that altitude. I feel like they need to be a significantly higher altitude than that. So at this point, let's take this over to horizontal velocity up, and let's just put this into a parking orbit, or not exactly a parking orbit, but a parking trajectory. We're very low in the atmosphere at this moment, and that is certainly concerning. Certainly concerning. This is going to have a lot more range and power than the Falcon 9. No doubt about that, but the recovery is what's concerning right now. I feel like we didn't get far enough on that first stage. But let's physics warp here and see where we end up at with these guys. They're going to start going down pretty soon. We see our apoapsis going up pretty quickly, though. I'm going to put this at about 200 kilometers. That's fine. And now we're going to switch over to one of these side boosters. Oh, we can't switch vessels while in atmo. Right. We're still in atmosphere here, so we need to physics warp until we get out of the atmosphere, which will be eventually. We're going to deploy this fairing to reveal the nothing that we have inside. This is just a test flight, right? And we're going to hop back over to these guys. At this point, we can no longer revert. But we can just refund our money and call it a reversion. That would be fine. I'd round it down, but we'll see how this goes. I'm very concerned about this situation right now. So, these guys need to deploy, and we need to go to surface velocity minus. And we can see the other one's right over here, so we can swap over to that as well. And you, if I can grab you, need to deploy and go to surface velocity minus. They're both tumbling a bit right now. No doubt about that one. Their speed is kind of low, but they're having a really hard time making their way to surface velocity minus. This would be a re-entry burn. I think we're going to have to say we try to recover one and not the other, although we could do it via chutes. That's interesting, actually. We could do this via chutes. These are moving quite slowly at this point. They're not very energetic, right? Now, this one is tumbling, and that's understood. This is going to splash down hard and be destroyed. This one, we can probably think about recovering. Chutes would do the trick at this point. It's in a good attitude. This one is so much further down because it was still tumbling. We focused on getting this one into its correct attitude. And this is more a problem with KSP than anything else, right? Okay. So that one splashed down hard and was destroyed. That was expected. Commencing a braking burn here. This is not exactly a landing burn. It's just a braking burn. Okay. So we're able to do something about like that and recover one of them, right? Now, the other one we could absolutely recover via parachutes. That would also give us a little bit of extra delta V. We could burn off all of our fuel, in theory. So that's an option. Or we could just recover one of them and be like, that's our limitation. Because we can't do both in KSP simultaneously. I don't think that that's reasonably possible without getting into some, like, heavy scripting and, like, mech work on that regard. So I'm not going to do that at this time. In like vanilla KSP, that's a hard limitation. But we can definitely do something like this. So that seems fine. At this point, we've recovered one of those stages. The other stage is heading to orbit. But of course, we need to put a proper stop to that, right? I'm just going to untrack this. We're going to expend that and call that a cost of the test. But now we know what the issue there is. We don't have a payload on this, so there's no point in putting it into orbit. We know for a fact we're going to be able to put that into orbit. Now, the recovery of that booster is going to be interesting because I had a lot of fuel left. No doubt about that. So chutes are a decent option, and I'm going to pursue that option and see how that goes. So we'll keep a little bit of burn time left just in case, And I want to put a couple of chutes on each of these side boosters. If we can just get those chutes out, then we should be capable of recovering both of those boosters, in theory. I'm going to do like 8 total chutes, 4 drogues, 4 normal. That should be enough, I think. We'll see how that goes. So we need the Falcon Heavy here. Where are we at? Falcon Heavy. There we go. I'm going to put on the chutes on only the outside boosters. And then we're going to... maybe we'll do the chutes on all of them. That will definitely make things more viable. So the chutes are going to go kind of up top here. So radial mount parachutes, I'm going to do 4 of these. We're going to have to do it this way again. That did not actually go in. Okay, why did it put it there? Don't do that. I want you here. Duplicate that and put that here. And then we'll do the same out over here. 1 and 2. There we go. So there's the radial mount chutes. And I'll do the same over here. Cool. Right about like that. Now, drogue chutes. I'm going to put the drogue chutes basically right next to them. Like, right there. Okay, so drogue chutes there, and... no, don't duplicate that whole thing. Just the drogue chute. Drogue chutes about there. We'll do the same thing over here. Drogue chutes here, and drogue chutes here. Okay, so that seems reasonably fine. We're going to have to separate out all of these chutes and drogue chutes into this stage right about here. So that's going to go drogues here, and we're going to need regular chutes as well. So regular chutes are going to go here. So all of these are regular chutes down here, looks like. Looks good. And all of these are drogue chutes. So the idea behind this is not realistic. This is just to enable us to be able to recover 2 at once. And it will make things a lot easier as well. So that'll be reasonably fine. So these separate out, then the drogues deploy, then the mains deploy. That looks good. Now, let's put a payload onto this thing. So I'm going to delete this fairing for the time being. And we're going to need a decoupler here. I'm going to take this down, I think, to the 18 size. So we're going to do a TD18 decoupler here. And that decoupler is going to go, well, up above this stage for sure. It's going to go up here. So we're going to need to do this with the propulsion section. The propulsion section has very weak engines, and it also is kind of square-shaped. I think we're going to actually make it round because of fuel tank restrictions. We could go for maybe like a Mark III, but I feel like that doesn't really work all that well. So we're going to go for the FL size of fuel tank here. I'm going to go for something kind of like this. I'm going to launch this with it full. That'll be fine. It's not going to carry a whole lot of fuel, but it doesn't necessarily have to. So that's fine. And then as far as the other section goes, there's definitely a dock here. So I'm going to have this go up docked together. We're going to use a regular Clampatron docking port, and then I'm going to duplicate that, flip that around. And then this is going to be like a habitation and logistics module. So what I'm going to do there is we're going to go with something along the lines of a hitchhiker storage container or 2. Actually, no. That's a Mark III passenger module here. We could go with a Mark I crew cabin. That is not very useful, though. Is there no crew cabin that's FL size? Interesting. That is very interesting. So we could go with a Mark III passenger module. That's, of course, a bit of a problem. I don't want to do that. We could go with a Mark II crew cabin. That's definitely not the shape we're looking for. We could just pretend it's a crew cabin, and instead we could go for something along the lines of a storage module. So that would end up being something more along the lines of an SEQ-24 or even an SEQ-9. Even that feels a little small. We could go with another fuel tank. I would like the ability to leave someone here. So taking a look here. Okay. Noted. Absolutely noted. I want to take a quick look at the engine layout. I saw this guy. Okay, so there's this artist conceptualization of it. So that basically looks like ion propulsion to me, but we're probably not going to go with ion propulsion here. Ion propulsion is pretty expensive, for one thing. And, I mean, we could, I suppose, go for ion propulsion. Maybe not the 6 engines. If we did go for ion propulsion, that would mean changing this over into being xenon, which is very expensive. And we don't even have that unlocked. So we're not going to go that route for now. We are, however, going to need to put some form of propulsion on this, right? So that pretty much means that we need to, well, reroute this. I think what I'm going to do is a cupola is a 2.5 meter part, right? We could go with like a Mark II lander can, or that is a 2.5 meter part for sure. We could omit the fairing. That is an interesting option here. I think for the moment, we can definitely toss on the Gigantors. So a pair of Gigantors would go on over here. I also want this power section to have a battery. So we'll definitely put in a 2.5K rechargeable battery like that. That'll be fine. Then on top of this, we need some form of container module. So that could definitely be something like an SEQ-24. And then this guy would be somewhere around here. We could just use the cupola module for that storage. Cupola modules do have some amount of storage, don't they? Apparently not. Okay, that's good to know. So in that case, we're probably going to not go with a cupola module and instead go with like a lander can. Now that is 2.5 meter. So we might have to scale this up a little bit. In reality, it should be pretty much flat. So that is definitely noted. I'm not a huge fan of that, but it is noted. We're going to need docking ports on this as well. So ultimately, that kind of means a fuel tank with the limitations that we have. So an FLX440 like this. The Mark II lander can is too big, but there doesn't appear to be an FL-sized pod, which is a little bit odd to me. Feels like there should be. The Mark II command pod works. It's not pretty, but it does work. I guess we could go with that. That would mean upgrading this from that size up to probably something more along the lines of this size in order to get the relative sizes a little bit more correct. So that would be reasonably fine. This should really be more like metal, but unfortunately that coloration isn't an option for us. Dark would be a good coloration. Gray and orange is, I guess, an option, but it really should be more like chrome. But I guess this is fine. So we're definitely going to want some struts here, for sure. And I want this to be quad, so it'll go something like this. I'm not sure that's actually connecting correctly, but whatever. I guess we could connect it out here, potentially. Sure. I don't like what it did with this one, though. So maybe bring that down to be about here or so. Yeah, that'll be fine. So with that connected together, I don't like the positioning of it. Should be positioned closer to that, but I'm going to turn off the snapping here. Apparently we can't turn off the snapping. Let's turn it off now. No, I want it snapped here. Okay, that's a little awkward. The snapping is not perfect, but it'll go something like this. I don't like that. Down here. Nope, I don't like that. Okay. This really doesn't want to go. You know what? We'll put it back over here since it went here. Okay, I guess that's fine. It's a little off-center. Now, we're going to need docking ports. I'm going to go with the, I think, small docking port here. What docking port does the Orion use? That's something we should check. I'm going to save this. Let's open up the Orion and see what that uses. I know that the Starship uses a large docking port, but let's see what SLS and Orion uses. So that would be this Artemis 3 SLS. Okay. So this is utilizing a Clampatron docking port. Okay. Good to know. That is absolutely fine. We're going to open this back up, and we're going to go with the Falcon Heavy again. So with the Clampatron docking port, that could be interesting as far as sizing it up here goes. But this is absolutely just a mini space station right now, right? Now, the plan appears to be delivery of the IHAB module, the Spirit module. Okay, so the Lunar Gateway diagram here indicates that we're going to need 2 docking ports on the power and propulsion element. Actually, no. These docking ports are only on the habitation and logistics outpost. 3 total docking ports. Okay, so what we're going to need up here is 2 docking ports, 1 right here on each side, like that. And then the Clampatron docking port up here. So that makes things awkward, right? I don't like the Mark 1 command pod here. Furthermore, I want this to be a little bigger. So I'm going to ditch that. We're going to go instead with the size here. I want these to be roughly similarly sized. So something like that, and then putting these guys, this should be perpendicular to these. Okay, so that seems good. Then up top here, we can put a Clampatron docking port. And then this could just operate as like a slight refueling station or like a fuel slush fund almost. It's not going to be fantastic. Now, we have no capability of storing Kerbals here and no capability of storing objects here. The habitation module absolutely should have the capability of storing Kerbals. Unfortunately, the size is very awkward for us. I think we might have to size it up. So, that means ditching this and starting over, and also ditching our fairing here. So, that's fine. We know basically what we want at this point. A TD-25 decoupler. We want a Rockamax 32 tank now. So this is putting more and more weight onto this, right? That's absolutely understood. We'll see if our thrust to weight is okay here. Then we're going to need our docking ports here. So this will be regular docking port here and here. Then we're going to need to duplicate this guy and not have this here. We're going to need to put on our Gigantors. I'm going to put those here. I'm going to rotate this so that these are different, like that. And then we're going to have the docking port go here. Actually, I'm going to downsize this. I'm going to downsize that to the 16. So the 16 goes here. This also allows us to make this be metal, which is a much better material for what we're trying to make here. So I like that. Then I'm going to go with a... Maybe we should not have this at all. Now we could theoretically just go with 2 hitchhiker storage containers, like this, and place the docking port here. Now, the hitchhiker storage containers, of course, cannot be painted, but that's okay. And then a Clampatron docking port here with maybe an adapter. That would probably want to be a fuel adapter. Just so that we have some amount of, maybe a little bit more of an adapter than that. Can we go directly? Yes. Kind of like that. So a C7 brand adapter. So it would end up being more along the lines of this. This would launch without a fairing, and we would come up in here. We would definitely want to still include a battery. And we don't have engines on this yet. So that is a thing that we're going to need. We'll put the battery there, and then we are going to put in our strut connectors coming from here, going to, in theory, about here. Like that. So that would lift off like so. That seems okay. Assuming our thrust to weight can handle that. Now, we're going to need to detach this because we need to... Well, actually, what we need to do is change our route part here. So I'm going to reroute this, and I'm going to rename this from the Falcon Heavy over to the Lunar Gateway. Okay. We need to reroute that and lift that up, detach this, because what we need now is an engine plate here. So we need an engine plate, and I'm just going to do 2 engines here. So an EP25 with 2 attach nodes. This is going to be a short variant, like so. And we're just going to go with a couple of, like, multi-nozzle vacuum-optimized engines here. So probably something along the lines of Poodles. Those are a little on the large side. But we could definitely go with the, like, quad compact. They're still a little too big. What about single compact? That could work, actually. Okay, so this attach point is obviously not ideal. We would need this to be at, like, medium short. Even that's a little too long, or a little too short. Medium long? That's about right. Okay, so it would be something along the lines of this would be our lunar gateway. Now, the engines are definitely not quite what we see in the photos, but honestly, I suspect they'll be different anyway. So that is reasonably fine. I'm going to call that complete on the overall construction phase of the lunar gateway here. We can't change this either, unfortunately. So this is as close as we're going to get to having this be all chrome. It is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to lift this thing, and we're going to attempt to recover all 3 stages of this, which should be a much more simple thing to do at this point. 1.78 thrust to weight. Okay, noted. We'll only need to keep about 5 seconds of burn time, I think, with the parachutes and the air brakes. So we'll see how that goes next episode. Also, this whole thing is going to be less without recovery than we'll get for delivering the lunar gateway. So that sounds good. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Kintogan, Ali Lee, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12 UK, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.